welcome back to Elevate Your Wealth. I'm Casey Elkins, co-founder and managing partner at Elevated Financial Management. I'm joined as always by Mark Stimpson, my friend, father-in-law, and business partner. How you doing, Mark?
I am doing really good, Casey. In fact, this week's show, I think we're very excited about sharing some things that is going to provide some practical help that our viewers are going to be able to employ right away. And I'm loving some of the things that we're going to talk about in today's show.
Yeah, you know, let's jump right into it, right? No time to waste. And I think something that really hits us a lot of the time is that we see so many folks approaching retirement, realizing that things are so much different now than they were when they were 40.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what do we really mean by that, right? Well, when you're 40, you're not really concerned about how you're going to spend your money in retirement, right? Yeah. You're not worried about creating income in retirement. You're not worried about Social Security timing or how taxes will affect you for the rest of your life. But as you approach retirement, those all become much bigger things. They come to the forefront. We have to start dealing with those. And so we talk a lot about how accumulation, right, building those assets, is different than decumulation, which is actually taking those funds that you've already built, that nest egg that you have, and then making that efficient in retirement. And that's something we see a lot. And I think one of the biggest things that's so different that first comes to mind for folks is taxes. Well, you want to share something on that with us?
You know, taxes and tax planning are critical to a successful retirement plan. And what we've seen over the years is the fact that a lot of the big box stores, they don't want to deal with taxes. In fact, they are told you can't talk about taxes. In fact, they'll just tell you, go talk to your CPA or to your tax preparer, right? But that creates a problem in and of itself, right? Because if you've got a complete different individual that's supposed to help you with your taxes and isn't involved with the plan that we believe is so critical, it's going to create a problem down the road, and it usually won't take very long before the tax problem raises its ugly head, and it's got to be dealt with. So we believe taxes, it's great on the accumulation side, right? We're trying to defer taxes as long as we can, but when it comes time to distribute, right, we've gone up the mountain, now we've got to come down the mountain. That's where it's totally different between the accumulation advisor and the distribution advisor. And the most distribution advisors will help you with taxes. The accumulation advisors will not. So we believe you need to find somebody, if you don't already are working with someone that can help you with distribution, you should probably look to find that, because there is a tremendous difference between that person and it can make a world of difference in you having a successful retirement. Because I think we both know, Case, the two biggest eroders of our clients' money, my money, I'm looking at, I could retire if I wanted to, I don't, but I could, is going to be taxes and inflation. So you've got to have a plan to deal with those two issues that sometimes get pushed aside by the accumulation advisor.
Right, and you know, that makes it so difficult when you have an advisor that's maybe single-faceted, right? And what we mean by that is somebody who's just focused on the investments, and that's a very, very important piece to the puzzle, right? Yes. And when you're 40, that might be the only piece of the puzzle that you really need, right? But as time goes on, as you approach retirement, all those other things start to become, again, like we said, bigger issues, more at the forefront. And so now you need assistance in other areas, right, as you approach that retirement landmark. And so that being said, as we're thinking about that, we've really got to have a strategy that sets us up in the right way. And how much nicer is it when all of that falls under one roof instead of the client,
a quarterback.
That's it. Yeah, instead of the client feeling like they have to be the quarterback and they have to coordinate between 3 or 4 or 5 different people that are giving them advice, and none of those people are talking. Instead, you have one firm that can help you, that can set all of that up for you, right? And so we know taxes, as you said, are going to be a huge eroder of wealth, especially when we consider the country's current debt load. We're talking over $31 trillion. And one of the main ways that they're going to get that is through retirees' funds. Because at the end of the day, when you think about it, who has the most amount of money saved that has never been taxed, right? It's in a 401k, it's in an IRA, and that's a big concern. And realistically, this is something that we talk about quite a bit when we teach a workshop. And so maybe for our folks at home, I'll just kind of give you a taste of this example, of this idea. So let's consider right now that you are going to go look for a home. And you find this perfect home for you and your family, and you're really excited about it, right? It's the right price, it's in the right neighborhood, everything is great, everybody's looking forward to it. So what do? You go to the bank and you ask them about getting a mortgage, right? And the bank says, hey, no problem, we're going to give you the loan, don't worry about it at all. But we're not sure what the interest rate is right now. So what we'll do is at the end of 30 years, you can pay us all the interest back at that time. We don't know what the rate is, but you can pay it all back at the end of 30 years. Well, how many people would take that deal, right? Nobody would do that, right?
Not anybody.
Yeah, and yet with 401ks, with IRAs, that's essentially what's been done,
right?
Exactly. People have agreed that they'll pay taxes on every dollar that comes out, and they don't know what the tax rate's going to be in retirement. And that is such a big burden for retirees to bear.
Yeah, in fact, I'm glad you mentioned this, Casey, because we believe, contrary to what most box stores will have their clients want to do, they want to keep that qualified money, which would qualified, I want to explain, maybe an IRA or a 401k. They want you to keep that as long as possible, right? Because they're getting paid a fee to manage that money. We take a totally different approach because we believe right now paying tax at the lowest rate that person, you or me, may ever see makes a lot of sense. And so why not pay a rate at 15% instead of 20, right? But a lot of folks just don't want to face the tax man. So part of our job is to educate them so that they feel fairly good about paying tax now and not having to pay me later.
That's exactly it, right?
Yeah.
That's the pain of regret versus the pain of discipline. And we experience that in our lives everywhere, but that's so important when it comes to retirement planning. And so with that being said, we're talking about taxes, retirement specifically. Mark, for our folks listening at home, we have a special offer for them. You want to share with them what that is?
We are so excited to have you with us today, and this is what we're going to do for our offer to you. For the first 5 callers that have saved at least $250,000 or more, maybe you're retiring from Boeing or one of our other companies in the Seattle area, please, what we're going to do is this. We're going to put together a solid written plan just for you. It's going to be done by a certified financial planning team. We're going to look at your taxes. We're going to look at your income sources. We're also going to take a hard look at where any money that you may want to pass to your children is going to go. Do you want to give money to charity, possibly? What about maybe even, again, the income? We need to make sure it's going to be solid and where it's going to come from. So please pick up the phone, 844-342-7142. That's 844-342-7142.
Thank you very much, Mark. Again, for those listening at home, this is a complimentary, no obligation, written retirement plan to put you on the right path for success. Again, we're talking about retirement today, taxes, how accumulation is different than decumulation, all those things that you're thinking about that's on your mind. We're talking about that right here. Don't change the channel. Come right back to Elevate Your Wealth.
Call 844-342-7142 now to receive your complimentary tax map with your written financial plan. Learn multiple strategies that can protect you from higher taxes now and in the future. Taxes are a threat to your financial stability in retirement. Protect yourself from the potential threat of rising taxes. As a retirement planning financial advisory firm, Casey, Mark, and the team will help you navigate the financial waters to pursue your retirement goals. Call 844-342-7142 today. Casey, Mark, and the team offer inclusive retirement services, such as investment directives for your portfolio, income-producing strategies, and wealth preservation plans for your family and legacy. Call Mark, Casey, and the team at 844-342-7142 right now for your complimentary tax map with your written financial plan. Discover tax strategies to keep more of what you have saved in retirement, or use the QR code below to schedule today.
Welcome back to Elevate Your Wealth. Again, I'm Casey Elkins here with Mark Stimson. We're talking about all those topics that retirees are facing, things that they're dealing with that are top of mind. And so today we're talking about accumulation versus decumulation and what the difference really is there. And we're kind of breaking that down topic by topic, right? So we just talked about taxes, how that's different from when you're building your nest egg to when you're actually spending that nest egg. And now we want to talk a little bit about market volatility, right? So the ups and downs, riding the wave of the market. How is that different in retirement versus when you're building and saving for retirement?
In fact, I'm glad we're talking about this subject because I think right now, Casey, we know that one of the hardest things for us to get our clients to see is how they need to become a spender versus a saver. That's a real struggle for a lot of our clients.
It is,
probably the majority struggle with that. We've got to help them because if you don't become a spender, you're not going to enjoy the type of retirement that I think we want our clients to have and enjoy. And we know deep down that they want to have, right?
Absolutely.
Market volatility has got to be addressed because I think we all understand that if somebody's 40, 45 years old, they can be in that Corvette and they can, drive those stocks at 60, 70 miles an hour, and they don't worry too much about the up and down, right? You're going to have that. That's just what the market does. But the older we get, maybe we're moving into a van, a minivan. After our children are gone, we're still going to drive that minivan a little bit, right? We got to drive a little slower. We got to be a little more protective, right? And a lot of the planning that we do in our office is age-based. Right? So we'll look at a client, and if I've got a client that's 70 years old, I'm going to want close to probably 70% of his portfolio in guaranteed accounts. And all we have to do is look at the banking fiasco, which we're going to talk about maybe another show here. But the whole thing, it matters to have guarantees. It's either guaranteed or it isn't, right? And so market volatility, the older we get, and now we need to start drawing income down, you've got to have a plan for that, right? Because if all of your assets are in the market and tied to the stock market, if you need to take money out at the same time, right, what's going to happen to the income? Well, I think we all know the answer to that. It's going to have to go down, right? So you're locking in those losses, which we don't want to have clients do. We want to have money in the market. That's why we layer income in our office, red, yellow, green, just like a stoplight. Some are going to have red money's in the market, yellow money's bank inventory, money they keep in the bank, liquid all the time. And then we have protected growth, right? That's protected from a principal standpoint.
Right.
So that's going to help us gauge volatility, right? We're going to be able to control a little bit of it because we can't, the market's going to do its thing. There's going to be volatility, right? And if you can't deal with volatility, you might want to think about maybe doing it a little differently. And that's why we care and we have every client do a risk score, right? And we believe that's critical to helping us to control and put together a portfolio that is going to help them deal with the volatility that's going to come.
Right, and that market volatility, ultimately, it's your friend, right? When you're saving for retirement, right? When you're building, because as your dollar cost averaging, right, you're spending a fixed amount each month to purchase stocks. When the market's down, you're purchasing more, and you're purchasing on the rise back up, so your investment's growing, and ultimately you're following the plan, and it's the right thing, right? So there's no issue there, but as you said, when you approach retirement, it's a different ball game, right? And so if you think about that, when you're in retirement, ultimately, and you have to start taking funds out, if you have to take a distribution while the market's down just to meet your spending goals, just to meet your income goals for that year, you're cannibalizing yourself. You're cannibalizing those that principal, and that's a real detriment in retirement. So we want to be very careful, especially because when we look at the market, over a long enough time frame, the market is up, right? If we look at a 15 or 20-year time frame, the market does well, right? And we can expect that. It's not timing the market, it's time in the market that creates that success. But when we look at shorter time frames, 3, 5, 10 years, the market's not always up. And if we need money in those 3, 5, or 10-year time frame, we better make sure that those funds are invested differently than our longer term money, right? And again, that's where it boils down to having a plan. And I think ultimately when it comes to volatility, and this kind of pulls us into our next topic, Mark, is people make very emotional decisions, right? When they see their account values drop, they make very, and we've seen that, a very emotional decision. We've both had clients come into us that were invested in doing well, and as the stock market started to shift and adjust, or maybe even during a presidential election, what have they done? They've liquidated, moved everything to cash. And a very specific example comes to mind, and we've talked about this before, but a client was concerned about Trump being elected, moves all of his funds to cash, and then misses the entire multiple years of growth.
Almost 12-year bull run.
Yeah, but after Trump was elected, right?
Well,
so that specifically,
right.
And he missed that entire growth period,
right?
And just kind of sat on the sidelines, thinking, hoping, waiting that the market was going to fall and that he had made the right decision, but ultimately he'd made the wrong decision. And so those emotional decisions are a big detriment in retirement. What do you think about that, Mark?
Well, in fact, it's funny you mentioned that, because I think what we want our viewers to understand is investing really is governed by two basic emotions. One is greed, and the second one is fear, right? And when the train's going up like it did for almost 12-year bull run, maybe even a little bit longer, everybody gets on that train a little bit, that greedy train, and they never want to step off, right? So if they don't step off at some point and turn that bubble wealth, what we call bubble wealth, into real wealth, it creates a problem for them, right? Because now so many clients are riding the train down. We know this past year, the average qualified plan was down close to 23%, which can take 5 to 6 years to recover from. And the older we get, are you going to be able to do that? See? Right. But then you mentioned the other one. The train's going down, so everybody jumps out of the market. They try and time how to get back in. That's impossible to do, right? They think they can do it, but I will tell you, we can't do it. We don't expect any client to try and do that. That's why we got to have a plan to be able to take money possibly out of other buckets that are not dropping at the same time that our stock account is doing. So again, I just want to emphasize how critical it is that we have a plan, because if we do that, we're going to be able to weather the volatility storms that are going to come with every plan, because we're figuring on a 20 to 25, 30-year retirement, right? And that's going to involve some ups and downs. We know that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk more about that when we come back, but ultimately what it boils down to is flexibility, right? The old saying, bend and not break. Right. We have to have that in retirement. We have to be flexible. And so for our folks listening at home, what it really boils down to is that we have open slots available. If you're willing to get up off the couch, pick up the phone, give us a call. We're offering a written financial plan, and it's 100% complimentary, no obligation. What that plan really entails is that we're going to sit down, we're going to find out more about you, where you're at, where you'd like to be, help us understand the struggles maybe that you're dealing with when it comes to financial planning, and we're going to build an income plan for you. We're going to build a tax plan for you. We're going to deal with healthcare. All of those things that retirees are dealing with, that's exactly what the written financial plan is for. So please don't hesitate to pick up the phone. It's 844-342-7142. Mark and I will be happy to sit down and talk with you. Again, 844-342-7142. Don't change the channel. We've got a lot more to talk about. We're going to talk about emotional decisions, again, market volatility, and healthcare in retirement, how all of those things are going to affect you. So don't change the channel. Come right back to Elevate Your Wealth.
Call 844-342-7142 right now for your own written financial plan. Having a clear path to retirement is more than just your savings. This review will include a complete risk analysis on your portfolio, a deep dive fee X-ray to determine how much you are and could be paying on those investments, a tax reduction report, and healthcare and legacy planning for you and your estate. To begin your retirement readiness review, call Casey, Mark, and the team at 844-342-7142 or use the QR code to schedule your appointment right away. Whether your retirement is coming soon or you want to be certain you can stay retired, the written financial plan will help guide you through your retirement planning journey. Call Mark, Casey, and the team at 844-342-7142 or use the QR code to schedule your meeting today.
Welcome back to Elevate Your Wealth. I'm Casey Elkins, again here with Mark Stimson. We're talking about accumulation versus decumulation, and realistically, what the difference is between building for retirement versus actually retiring. And that's what we all need to understand as we approach that mile marker in our lives. And so we were just discussing emotional decisions and how that really can have a negative impact on retirement. And as you mentioned, when it comes to market investments, it's fear and greed that drive market investments and people's decisions. And if we're just letting those two emotions guide our retirement, we're really setting ourselves up for something to be a failure, right? Because fear and greed, I mean, those are two very, very strong emotions, and it's almost like you have a devil and an angel sitting on your shoulder, right? And you're trying to figure out which way to go, and the way to navigate that is with a plan, right? Something that can really help us, guide us as we're thinking about retirement, and show us that we can have a successful retirement as long as we stay balanced about how we're investing, about how we're dealing with those concerns. And if we kind of move to that next concern, Mark, one that a lot of folks are dealing with, and again, something that you have to deal with as you approach retirement that you didn't have to deal with before, is Medicare, right? Healthcare, figuring out how that's going to affect you, what plan to use. Maybe share with us a little bit about how some of your clients have been affected by that and what you've done to help them.
Yeah, in fact, healthcare costs, we're not going to talk numbers. All I can share with the audience today is the numbers are pretty staggering as to how much you're going to need over an average retirement cycle, right? Lifetime. Everybody's situation is completely unique to them, right? But the numbers could go anywhere from $2 to $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 that you may need. Now, that's why we don't try and pin a number on it, because we don't know what that situation is going to be exactly. But we want to have a plan for that, because if it does happen, especially when it comes to long-term care, what are you going to do? We talk about this on every radio show that we do pretty much. In our area, in the Seattle area right now, if you're in full-blown nursing care, it's going to run you about $12,500 per month.
That's
right?
a lot.
And where is that going to come from? Right? And I've mentioned this many, many times. If you've got a solid plan, and there could be an atom bomb that could go off, we know that's what it's going to be, right? You end up needing some form of long-term care. The staggering statistic from the federal government themselves is that 70 to 75% of every one of us that are humans are going to face some form of long-term care before we pass away. That is a staggering number. And the problem is most retirees don't want to talk about it. It's something that stays in the closet, right, until it happens. The problem with that is then we're dealing in crisis mode. Right. Then we're going to make decisions based on what we've been doing, an emotional decision, which maybe isn't the best decision we could have made, right? So again, we want to hit those things head on. We want to have a plan for them. And there's some very unique things that we can do that maybe you can talk about a little bit, Casey, to deal and be able to help pay for long-term care if that should come up.
Yeah, you know, there are some different choices, right? And so the first one you kind of mentioned, right, is to self-insure, right? We've got our own bucket of money and we're just going to spend that money as we need it. But one of the main things that we see that's a problem with that is, one, it might not be enough money. Right. And two, when we do that, what we've seen clients do is they live a less than retirement, right? Because they're concerned. There's this big dark cloud hanging out in their future that they know they might have to deal with. And so what do? They've got this chunk of assets, but they don't really spend that money on living their life because they feel like it needs to just sit there and wait to deal with long-term care. And so they live a less than retirement. They don't do the things that they've been planning to do. And so there's a much better way, right? And that's really where it starts to come down to you and I to figure out what those options are. And one of the main things that we'll use is actually long-term care insurance. Now, it has to be set up the right way, right? There's some things that have to be dealt with in that circumstance, and there's different types of long-term care insurance that we can use. But what's beneficial in that circumstance is, if we think again back to that original scenario, if we're self-insuring, if we have $500,000, let's call it, and we need $500,000 worth of care, that's a wash, right? It's one-to-one, that's it. Right. If we use long-term care insurance, maybe we pay in $200,000, and we get the benefit of $500,000.
Right, exactly.
And so we're getting leverage on our money. That's it, right? And so
Yeah.
it's really about being the best custodian of the funds that we can, right? Being a good financial steward to ourselves, that we're taking care of ourselves in retirement, and that's the key. And we know that healthcare costs are a significant cause of bankruptcy
Yeah, the
in
number one.
retirement lives. That's it,
Yep.
right? And so,
Yep.
again, something that we need to cross that off the list. We need to make sure that we're taking care of it. And so, Mark, I know that you're a nationally certified Social Security advisor.
Right.
Along with that comes the Medicare piece. And there's so much to navigate there, right?
Yeah.
As you kind of mentioned, Med Advantage versus Med Supplement. There's a lot to figure out. Now, we have an in-house Medicare specialist, and she can do all of that, but
Right.
you're very well versed in that too. And so when we think about that, how have you helped clients navigate that Medicare question?
Now that you've asked me that, everybody's situation needs to be looked at individually,
That's right,
right? My Boeing clients, a lot of times we never keep the supplement that Boeing offers. There's a much better way to do it through United Healthcare that can involve actually zero premium, right, with small copays. I just want to maybe address one thing really quickly. One of the biggest drawbacks to long-term care planning is people feel that if they don't use it, they lose it. And there's some ways to address that, where if you don't use it, it's going to come back to the spouse or the family.
That's right. Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for bringing that up. I
Yeah.
missed that. Yeah, and that's absolutely true, right? And it's really important for us to just explore all those options for that individual circumstance. So for our folks listening at home, we have a special offer. You want to tell them about it, Mark?
Yeah, so please pick up. We've got plenty of spots that you can pick up and call 844-342-7142. But we just want you to know what you're seeing with Casey and I, that's what you're going to get when you come in and just have a conversation with us. Tell us about your situation. We're going to look at your tax situation. We're going to look at your income. Are you going to have guaranteed income? What about the medical piece that we just talked about? How are you going to deal with taking care of what Medicare doesn't cover? Long-term care will be included in that discussion. Then we're also going to look at any legacy planning that you may need to do where you want to move assets to your children or to a charity. See, so come in, just have a conversation with us. Please don't worry, keep your checkbooks at home. Pick up the phone, call us at 844-342-7142. That's 844-342-7142.
Well, it's been really nice being here with you, Mark, and to everybody at home, we've enjoyed having you with us as always. As Mark mentioned, it's complimentary, no obligation. Again, 844-342-7142. And I think if we can boil it down to this is, are you concerned? Are you worried about your retirement? Is that something that you're thinking about, trying to figure out how you're going to deal with it? Don't hesitate to pick up the phone and give us a call. This is what we do every day. We're here to help. Check us out online, efmnw.com. There's a QR code on your screen. We'd love to see you in the future. We'll see you right back here next week for Elevate Your Wealth.